Something was announced. It sounded decisive. It sounded forceful. Then the limits showed up. Then the votes landed. And then, quietly, the authorities stopped where many assumed it wouldn't. Stay with me, folks.
The Supreme Court has dealt a significant blow to the Trump administration, blocking the president from deploying the National Guard to Chicago. In the 6-3 ruling, the court's 3 liberal justices were joined by Chief Justice John Roberts, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And today's decision could jeopardize Guard deployments in other cities.
Folks, today we're looking at a moment where expectations ran straight into institutional reality. Over the past several weeks, the public was told to expect a sweeping show of federal power, a promise that uniformed forces could be deployed into major American cities to restore order, reduce crime, and send a message. What followed instead was a Supreme Court ruling that changed the trajectory of that plan, not with speeches, not with politics, but with legal limits. In this breakdown, folks, you're going to see 3 things: what was expected, what actually happened, and what the receipts show when you line up the law, the votes, and the timeline. We'll also look closely at public reaction, not just applause or criticism, but suspicion, relief, sarcasm, and confusion. And if you appreciate calm breakdowns that let facts speak, folks, subscribe to Breaking Supporters. Let's start with expecta. Tie-ins. The expectation was straightforward, that when cities were described as dangerous, when crime was framed as out of control, and when local leadership was portrayed as ineffective, federal authority could step in directly. The expectation was that the National Guard could be deployed broadly, even without state requests, under existing federal law. Many believed this authority was already settled, that courts would defer, and that the threshold was mostly political rather than legal.
How do you feel about the National Guard being deployed in Chicago?
It's a waste of time and opportunity.
It's awful.
I hate it.
We hate it.
Like, it's hard to find a word pretty much other than disturbing.
Definitely makes me feel extremely unsafe.
Definitely don't like it. Our city is the safest it's been in over 30 years. We walk around town all the time. The only problems that we see are where ICE is.
We don't really read National Guards out here because the people they grab it are the people that's really not doing anything wrong. They're just trying to make a living for themselves, support their families.
I'm actually a naturalized citizen and thinking about it twice now because, am I going to get stopped? Am I going to get searched? Am I going to get asked?
Honestly, I think it's like a really excessive use of power in a situation that doesn't require it.
As a Latino woman who just walking around and seeing hordes of police officers swarming people, like something I see on a daily basis, just makes me feel way more unsafe than before they were here.
That was the expectation, folks. This is the reality. In a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court blocked the deployment of the National Guard to Chicago, and the lineup mattered. 3 liberal justices were joined by the Chief Justice, along with Justices Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. The court did not debate whether crime exists. It did not weigh political strategy. It focused narrowly on statutory language. The key point: regular forces does not mean police, federal agents, or immigration officers. It means the regular military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. That interpretation raises the bar significantly. And it doesn't just affect Chicago, folks. It potentially limits future deployments in Oth, or cities as well. Now to the receipts. The statute used to justify the deployment allows federal action only when the president is unable, using regular military forces, to execute the laws of the United States. The administration argued civilian law enforcement qualified as regular forces. The court rejected that interpretation. The ruling leaned heavily on long-standing limits like posse comitatus, which restrict military involvement in civilian law enforcement to extremely narrow situations. This decision came through the emergency docket. No full briefing, no oral argument. A process often criticized depending on who wins or loses. Yet the outcome was decisive. Even justices appointed by the same president who advanced the policy agreed the legal standard was not met. Those are the receipts, folks: votes, statute, tes, and precedent. Public reaction has been intense and revealing. Some of the most engaged comments focused on the voting split itself. Several noted that Justices Alito and Thomas dissented again, while others questioned whether there is anything they wouldn't support. Comments that drew dozens of replies debating judicial consistency versus ideology. Other highly liked reactions expressed relief. One of the most upvoted sentiments was simple: troops on city streets are not something people want to see, regardless of politics. Another cluster of comments zeroed in on long-term consequences. Some argued the court may be realizing that rulings granting expansive power today could be used by future presidents tomorrow, a point that generated heavy discussion. There were also speculative reactions. A number of commenters suggested the deployment effort was less about public safety and more about political signaling ahead of future elections. Those comments drew significant engagement, both agreement and pushback. Sarcasm showed up too, folks. Several highly replied comments expressed surprise that the court got one right, while others framed the ruling as overdue, suggesting limits should have been clearer much earlier. At the same time, not all reactions were celebratory. Some questioned whether this means every city will now require separate court rulings. Others argued the decision still leaves too much discretion in place. What's notable, folks, is that reactions weren't uniform. They were fractured, emotional, analytical, and often contradictory. Hey, indeed, that tells us something. So let me ask you folks, what stood out to you most here? The legal reasoning, the voting coalition, or what this signals for future presidents? How do you think courts should balance public safety concerns with limits on federal power? Do rulings like this strengthen institutional checks, or simply delay the next legal test? Drop your thoughts below, folks. This is one of those stories where the comments matter. Folks, this story is still unfolding. This ruling doesn't settle debates about crime, immigration, or federal authority. It doesn't declare winners or losers. It draws a line and leaves room for that line to be tested again. What happens next will depend on how future cases are framed, which statutes are invoked, and whether different circumstances change the legal calculus. Here on Breaking Supporters, folks, we track what people expect and what actually happens. If you value calm analysis, timelines, and receipts without being told what to think, subscribe to Breaking Supporters. We'll keep watching this one.